Are we recording? Okay, wait, I'm supposed to do this? Oh, look at this. I know you guys want this so bad. Uh-huh. Both. Damn, pizza ankle. I got my protein pancakes and my water and motivation. I am filming this video because I feel like it. I'm filming a video making prosthetics. I'm going to be making Pros-Aide transfers today. I don't know why, I just really want to make stuff and that's all. I'm thinking making some cuts, I think I want to do like a gash in the neck. That'll be like my medium prosthetic. The cat wants to leave. It's too bad. I started filming. Make the plan, make the schedule. Calm down. Not everything is about you, Cody. It's like, okay, you're so dramatic. You want to say hello at least first before you interrupt so much? No, he doesn't. I have Zelda on in the background. Love that. Have a little bokoblin. Oh, have a bokoblin back there. I don't know what his name is yet, but he's chill. And these are just basic outlines with pencil on this melamine board. Make our sculpt out of clay on here, like a Chavant clay, or I have Monster clay right here, which is just a sulfur-free oil-based clay. Make the sculpture. Stop! Okay, please hold. At least say hi. Making me look unprofessional. Top eyebrow, bottom eyeball, and our neck wound boxes labeled. This is a Kemper Tools D2. It's got a loop on one end and a kind of square on the other. I'm just gonna scrape out some of this oil-based Monster clay, not sponsored yet. Manifesting positive things. Oh my god, it's so hard. We're gonna roll it so it makes our little worm. This is a fat worm. Smooth those edges into the base. That's quite a bit of height on there. I'm just gonna take my little Kemper tool, scrape that off. Smooth that top edge. So you want the end that's going to connect on top of the eyelid to be, I want it to be just a little bit thicker than the edge that's going to be up here on our forehead. You want your edges to be transparent, see-through. This is the time to get your measurements the way you want it. We're just only working on edges right now, and the shape, the outside shape, and I guess the overall size, height, width, length. Now that we have a very rough kind of outline, so we're gonna wrap our finger in this screen, and we are just going to do the same thing to our edges, but with this little screen on our finger. And do the exact same thing, like scraping the edge in like a cross hatching pattern, like an X. We're just gonna smooth it out. You can use a little bit of alcohol too on here, just for a basic. This is 99% alcohol. Do some blending with this too. I mostly use my thumb. And the alcohol dissolves this clay. So it dissolves those rough edges, and you want your edges to be as smooth as you can. You want to be able to slide your finger over the edges and not be able to tell where your clay edge starts and the board begins. And you're honestly just gonna keep going back and forth, cross-hatching that screen across your edges, across the whole thing really if you want to get it smooth, and your alcohol fingertip. Oh my god, we filming in this bitch! It's a new angle. Oh shit, hold up. I'm watching Queso. Do you guys like the new setup? Let's do that. You have to. It's a new day. Don't ask how many days it's been. You don't want to know. I'm still awkward. Calm down. The neck, which is this one that I barely started. We'll come back when I'm ready to make the cuts for the eyebrows. Bye! So let's skip ahead a bit. I already finished both eyebrow piece edges and the shapes. So now I'm finishing the neck piece. This tool I'm using is another Kemper Tools W21. And I actually use the wooden end of this tool to scrape my edges too, but I am just doing some pore texture with the metal end of this tool, doing an infinity pattern going along the entire piece and also going back and forth, layering this texture and using a black stipple sponge to mimic some more skin texture. I've done some work on the edges and thinning them out. I just did some pore texture. I actually took a photo of my neck where it's gonna go with the flash on and looked at how the pores lay and what direction they go. You want to have this flat starting point so that you can get all the texture around and get your edges done, because if I were to have lifted these pieces already, it would be difficult to get under those curves and get the texture that you want. One of the tricks that I was taught to see how good your edges are is to take your dry finger and to run it along the edge of your prosthetic and close your eyes and see if you can feel the edge of the prosthetic. And now we're gonna add some skin texture, doing our X's again. So basically you're just gonna do these X's, but on the neck the texture is curved. So I'm going to do larger strokes and then some finer strokes. And these don't have to be perfect. I'm working kind of quickly with this texture because we're gonna go back and do it a few times. So don't think that it has to be perfect the first time. We're gonna do like layering. A layer of this, soften it, a layer of more pores, soften, another layer of skin texture, soften, and I go all the way out to my edges with this texture, especially with the pores too. I personally think that extending your pores, starting out a little past your edge and doing an out, like the infinity symbol, really does do something with the edges. I don't know what is up with the camera, but I'm sorry for when the close-ups are out of focus. I really don't know how to use the autofocus or the manual focus, I guess, on my camera. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, so I try to speed up these parts. When I think my edges are pretty good, I will take a Q-tip with a tiny bit of alcohol on it and lightly do a rolling away motion from the very tip of the edges onto the board to really dissolve the clay that is furthest from the sculpture. It's got like a sharper end on it. You can see it right there. I'm gonna just poke some holes at an angle for some deeper pores texture. Just a few random ones, nothing crazy, just to give it some different texture. This next tool coming up, I couldn't find the exact name of, but it's just a basic metal sculpting tool with a sharp end and a spoon-like end. I'm taking the sharp end of the tool and making the broad shape and then pulling up some layers and then using the spoon side of the tool and lifting those layers up and out while looking at reference images. Q-tip with a small bit of alcohol on it and get rid of any clay beads that may come up. Now I'm making some tiny worms of clay and blending those edges into place to get more wound-like features. And I am putting some clay underneath that large cavity to limit any undercuts. And now I'm taking a tongue depressor broken in half and using this as some cool wound texture. I'm taking my pasta queen, and of course the fucking handle fell out, and I'm just using the same medium clay to make our flashing around the sculpture if my machine doesn't rebel again. I'm just firmly pressing this clay right in front of our sculpture's edge, not touching it, but right up in that bitch, and you can smooth any imperfections. I'm just taking a tongue depressor and cutting out a box around the sculpture with the clay that we just pushed up against that edge. I'm taking that same sharp edge and holding it at a 45-degree angle up from the board. I want a gradual slope. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. Take a Q-tip with alcohol, just making sure there's no clay residue or any debris in our little trench we made. Now I'm hot gluing some tongue depressors that I cut to match each side of the sculptures to make our box molds. I'm taking the wooden end of that W21 tool and pushing the edge of the clay up to the sides of the tongue depressors because we don't want the silicone to go anywhere else besides in our mold. And make sure to hot glue all the edges of the outside of the mold so there are no leaks. Now we need to measure the volume of the mold, which is length times width times height in inches, because now unfortunately we must do math. I will spare you. Now we outside. I did one final cleanup in our little trench we made and tared the scale and first measured out the correct amount of Bluesil 1068 silicone base part A and the High Pro Blue Catalyst part B. The specific silicone has a 10:1 ratio, and quickly stir these two parts. Now we are adding the Hyro slip, which is calculated at 12% of the base, or part A, which in this case, the part A was around 39 grams, the catalyst was 3 grams, and the slip was 3.5 grams. And pour without thinking about if wind might affect this pour, but alas, we must continue. Do not use any shared utensils when pouring these two parts. They will cure if they touch one another. Please wear protective gloves and a respirator in a well-ventilated area. I let it cure overnight, and now we demold. The Hyro slip does need to be activated, so it needs to be put in the freezer for at least 12 hours. I cut the release film into the right size for this mold, and we are going to place one end onto the material and slowly tap and glide the film on, trying not to have any trapped air bubbles. And we are pushing the material all the way to the cutting edge we made. We want the blue peeking through and a nice thick edge around. You can scoop any excess material back into the container quickly because this will immediately begin to dry unless there is a release film on top. Now we go back in the freezer for 2 or 3 cycles of freezing and thawing, about 20 to 30 minute cycles. Take them out of the freezer and flip her over and roll off using your fingers. Peel the flashing off by pulling away from the piece. I let these dry for about a week. Hey, what is up, my guy? Let's apply this Pros-Aide transfer finally. Using the transfer paper side now, the glossy side, which has release on it, I just put the prosthetics glue side down onto the glossy paper and press it all firmly in. Then cut each of them out individually and leave the clear plastic on until you're ready to apply. I'm just taking a cotton round with some alcohol or astringent onto the skin where we will be applying our prosthetics. I'm putting some Dermashield on as a skin barrier because this material is difficult to get off. I have a water spray bottle and a paper towel, and we're just gonna apply these just like those fake tattoos you used to do as a kid. I'm lining these up and holding them up to the light and marking the back just to mark pretty much like the shadow of the prosthetic. I'm putting some hourglass concealer on the part of my eyebrow I'm covering, which I should have done a little less on, but oh well. And I'm just setting the concealer with some RCMA translucent powder and dusting that off. Take the clear plastic off and press firmly into the skin and apply the soaked towel and hold firmly. Even though I let these dry for about a week, the thick boy still hadn't fully dried, but I was tired of waiting. I'm taking a tool with some alcohol on it and separating the little flap that got pressed down. Now we take some Pros-Aide original adhesive and a sponge gripped by some forceps and stipple around our edges with that Pros-Aide. This locks in our edges and helps to blend into the skin. Now we stipple a little powder over all prosthetics and over the glue we just stippled on. And we are going to take a damp paper towel and just dab over everywhere we powdered to just lift some of the powder cast. I have a chip brush that's been cut and some brushes. I'm using Skin Illustrator palettes and 99% alcohol. This is the FX palette in the shade Blood Tone, and I'm making a splatter effect with the paint onto the prosthetics to begin our color matching. The Blood Tone puts some depth and blood back into the prosthetic. With the Skin Illustrator palette, I'm going to go in with the Olive Adjuster because I have more olive tones in my skin. I'm also going to do a little of the vein tone. In that same palette, I'm going to take rice paper and go over all of the pieces as well. We're splattering more of that blood tone on top to show these wounds have irritation. With a smaller detail brush, I'm taking blood tone and doing some all over wound definition. I'll do stippling and blending with the brush in my finger. Now I'm taking the aged blood tone in the effects palette and shading some of the deeper areas. I'm using Fleet Street Fresh Blood on a Q-tip, doing light stippling and tapping that out. It's really easy to go ham sandwich with this blood, so take your time. This is one of my faves. It is the Mehron Coagulated Blood Gel. I use it for the deepest parts of any wound because it gives that wounded, oozing blood look and it stays in place. I'm taking the same damp paper towel I used to apply the pieces, and now I'm going to use it to do a blood application that I learned from watching Gary Tunnicliffe's videos on Stan Winston School Online. Go check them out. First, I'm mixing some blood and water and flicking it onto the skin with a toothbrush, or I prefer a chip brush, and going back and forth with applying the blood and dabbing it with that damp paper towel. little unnecessary, but I wanted some cohesiveness, so I gave it a little remnants of a nosebleed too. It's chill. It's a part of the character. I don't know. It's fine. I'm dabbing that blood mixed with the water paper towel a little bit everywhere, so there's not just random clean spots on the sides where all of the wounds are. It just adds some cohesiveness. Whipped out some Kryolan Eye Blood because it's eye safe, and I already opened it for a different project, and it has a short shelf life. Hell yeah, here is the finished look finally, and I'll include a close-up video with the flash on so you can see it's closer and have it actually be in focus. So enjoy that close-up. Thank you all for coming on this journey with me, and I want to make all kinds of prosthetics and creature makeups, so I hope you will come along. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Peep my little mummy mug back there. Oh, you right. We gotta take this makeup off. I'm using isopropyl myricate, which is an oil-based remover. Enjoy this removal, freaks.